So a couple years ago, I had just finished a new record and I was super excited about it. It was a bit of a pivot sonically, lyrically for me as an artist. It was also the first record I was releasing on my new record label that I had formed with some of my friends. This was about 10 years or so ago. Anyway, it's songs I had written over the summer. I had recorded them in the fall and mixed them over Christmas and I was ready to release them in the winter and everything was going great. I loved the songs. I loved the production. I loved the artwork. It felt like kind of a debut for me. Anyway, on release day, I sold a few records on Bandcamp. Like it actually did incredibly well. And I got some great responses, some good coverage. But anyway, release day, I woke up and I felt like this swell of depression. It just felt like it was all over. Like it was like everything I was excited about for 10 months of writing and recording and mixing and all the potential and everything so exciting that came with this was over, even though it really wasn't. The album would sell well. It would do really great. One of the songs still gets played like every single day today, 14 years later. I had a sync licensing deal. Regardless, it doesn't matter. I felt like everything was over. It just felt like super anticlimactic. And that was a huge bummer. And it was a huge wake-up call. And it's why I want to make today's episode talking about the post-release strategy. Why? Because a lot of us feel like release day should be the finish line where we burst through the tape, everyone hugs us, congratulates us, champagne bottles, awards, medals, whatever. But I want to argue this massive mindset shift. And if you take one thing away from today's video, I want it to be this. I want you to have this mindset shift where release day is not the finish line, it's the starting line. So if we think of a release campaign like a marathon, then release day is actually the starting line. The gun goes off, and that's where the hard work begins. And a release campaign like a marathon is quite long. In fact, I think it should be anywhere between 8 to 12 months, at least a full year from when you release the album to when you kind of end the release cycle. So then what about all the months that lead up to it, when you tease the new album, when you show the artwork, when you launch the pre-orders, when you maybe release some pre-release singles, when you pitch the album to press or send it off to manufacturing? What is that then, if you use this marathon analogy? Well, for me, that's just the training. It's getting ready. It's preparing. It's getting ready for the actual release, the actual marathon. So this is the mindset shift that I think all of us should adopt when it comes to promoting our record. Because why is it that we just literally drop the ball? We literally just end all of our hard work, all of our promotion on release day. Is it that we think that the pre-release is some sort of wind up and then we see how it goes? Is it like throwing a paper airplane and after release day, you just let go and see how far it goes? That's kind of the mentality, isn't it? And I'm just saying, no, we shouldn't do that. I get it though. Release day or the couple of weeks after, if things aren't going your way, you want to cut your losses. In fact, a lot of artists just want to be working on something new, especially if this record is something that they finished 6 months ago or 12 months ago or 2 years ago, and it's been in mastering and mixing and manufacturing. And they're already in the studio working on something new, or they have some new songs they've written and they're excited about. And so it's hard for them to promote and to milk this record that's actually kind of old news for them. That's just how creatives are. Artists are always looking for the next best thing that they're working on. Also, the mystique is gone. The cat's out of the bag. So all of this kind of wonder and mystery that happens in the pre-release is now gone. People can judge for themselves. You don't have the ability to leverage hype anymore because they can really just go and click and listen to it for free. So that presents us a challenge as well. So my tip for you is to make your post-release campaign part of your entire album campaign. So yes, all of that hard work leading up to release day is essential. It's traditional, it's normal, you got to do it. But that doesn't mean that your job as a record label owner or as an artist promoting your own music is over on release day. So here's like a bit of a formula. Let me throw up a graph. Basically, I think that you should be posting stuff, tons of stuff on release day and release week, and then slightly less stuff on the couple weeks that follow release week, slightly less on the month that follows, and so on and so on. In fact, when you're preparing for this new release, you should be holding stuff back to release on the days and weeks and months after your new release. A lot of us release the music video, the pre-release singles, the artwork, the pre-orders. All of this stuff happens before release day. It leaves us with nothing to utilize to promote. So I would say things like a B-side, remixes, a music video, a lyric book, a lot of behind the scenes stuff, or artist commentary where they can talk about their favorite songs. Maybe you spend one full week and you talk about each song off of the 10-song record. Talk about what the lyrics mean, about why you chose certain production styles. Look at this bell graph. Here's what I'm suggesting. The top, the highest point of the bell curve is release day. It's when we promote the album the most. In fact, we'll call it release week. We're posting once to 5 times a day for an entire week on release week, or maybe 3 days before release day and 3 days after, or whatever. Leading up to release day, you can see that you start to leak a few pieces of information, then you start to release and promote and initiate more and more things the closer you get to release date. But then as the bell curve curves down, you stay with that momentum. You post a lot of things in the weeks and months that follow release day, and then it tapers off. What are you going to do to promote your record in the entire year after release day? That's a tall order, but I think a lot of us are to blame for allowing our releases to die after release day. I don't like that. So I've made a checklist. You can download it for free. There's a link in the description. You can scan this QR code here. And in the checklist, I've given you a bunch of different ideas, initiatives, product things, social media promotions that you can do to promote your release after release day. The stuff before, that's common. Send it to your press, email your email list, post it on social media, pre-release singles, music videos. You know that stuff. And in this checklist, I've categorized it in different categories like content and reimagining certain content, like releasing a B-side or a remix album or instrumental versions or the demos of the music. Fan remixes. I also did a category about different engagement and promotion, like behind the song posts. Every song gets its own day in the sun where you talk about how it was made or why it was made. Mix breakdowns, showing the insides of the track, running a digital ad campaign, or hitting up your mailing list again. New formats and products is another category I talk about in this checklist. So holding back merch or holding back a format for a couple weeks after release day and say, okay, now we're releasing the vinyl. Now we're releasing special lathe cuts or cassettes or t-shirts, doing booklets, paper products of the lyrics and poetry or photographs. There's events and milestones you can do, like a release day recap, where a week after or a month after, you and the artist talk about like, how did release day go? Like, what was any emotional moments or any mistakes? So who do you want to thank? There's a 1 month, 6 month, 1 year anniversary promotion or release that you can do, a Christmas tie-in, all sorts of things. It's about just shifting this mindset. A release cycle could be and should be 6 to 12 months long, at least. Every song on this album or EP is a new chance for discovery. Now, just let me pop in here for a second and say, like, if you are just promoting a single, this mindset shift still applies. It just probably shortened, right? The pre-release is shorter than an album. The post-release is shorter than an album. The streaming world and even used vinyl and vinyl collecting, it's kind of created like a longer shelf life for the records that we make and release, because I have music I've added to my iTunes library that came out last week and also came out like last year sometime or a couple years before. And I just discovered it now on social media or just through a recommendation on Spotify. Or maybe I picked up a record at a record store that's 40 years old and it's the record I can't stop listening to. So albums do have a longer shelf life than we allow. We always let the press make us think that they only care about any release that came out today or this week. And that might be true, and that's fine. But for the fans, that's not the case. Don't forget that a fan needs multiple exposures to your music before they can finally go, oh, okay, I'm going to check that out. Even a fan who's like a diehard fan of your releases, they might get your email while they're sitting in church and they're like, oh man, I didn't know they had a new album out. That's so cool. I want to check it out, but I can't because I'm sitting in church. And so you need to remind them later that day or the next day, post on social media or a podcast or YouTube video or whatever, or a blog article. And then they see it and they go, oh yeah, I meant to check that out. Ultimately, your post-release is a mindset shift. Release day is not the finish line, it's the starting line. You can download my checklist that'll give you a bunch of ideas and help you with this mindset shift and help you create a great post-release strategy. Just click the link in the description or use the QR code. And a huge shout out to our friends at Lander for sponsoring today's video and making this possible. Because when you're going to release your single or your album, you need to use a digital distributor. And I recommend you use our friends at Lander. You can get a super sweet discount by going through us. Just go to otherrecordlabels.com/Lander. Thanks for watching.